Hey everyone, Jake here for American Muscle, and in this video we're taking a look at the Petters Extreme XA Coilover Plus kit fitting 1994 to 2004 Mustangs, excluding 99 to 04 Cobras. Whether it's the lowered look or improved handling you're after, the Extreme XA Coilover kit here is going to deliver both. These are a great choice for the street-driven car that may see some track time as well, since it is a very adjustable kit with track-bred tuning that doesn't compromise on ride quality. When you really start getting into the weeds of modifications, suspension upgrades like a set of coilovers are some of my favorite things to do to a car because they can completely transform the way it's going to drive. It takes these SN95 Mustangs from a little floaty in stock form to something that's going to carve corners with the best of them. Petters focuses on steering and suspension components, so their offerings are engineered to make a pretty significant difference. Now there is a lot to talk about here, but we're going to start out with the obvious. Coilovers will definitely lower your car, and these are adjustable, meaning that you can control how much you want to lower it down. If you want to slam it, drop everything all the way down, but if you prefer a bit more ground clearance, you can adjust these back up and not cringe at every speed bump or pothole. This kit will give you between 1 and 3 inches of lowering both front and rear. Now up front, you've got adjustable collars on the shock body here. Just spin that up to raise the ride height, lower it down to drop the car. Similar principle out back applies, except that the spring perches here are separately adjustable as well. Now the shocks are gas-charged monotube units, which is going to make them a bit stiffer and give them some more capable damping to account for that increased stiffness. However, these are not going to ruin your ride quality. In fact, you get adjustability here in the form of 30-way adjustable bump and rebound damping, and it's as simple as turning this knob right at the top of the shock unit. If you're hitting the track or your favorite twisty road, you can crank these up towards the harder setting, and when you're ready to cruise home on the highway, just turn it back down towards the softer setting. Makes these, again, a really great choice for a daily driven car that's going to see some occasional harder driving or track use. You can maintain that good ride quality that you want with the ability to throw it around like nobody's business at the drop of a hat. Now, of course, you will also get new springs in this kit. These are meant for lowered applications, and they were developed with a motorsports focus, so they can also handle that stiffer damping as well. The fronts have a spring rate of 8 kilograms per millimeter. The rears are 6 kilograms per millimeter, so they are going to be stiffer than your stock springs, but again, not so much that they're going to punish you on every long trip. Now, the other thing we see included here, in keeping with the theme of adjustability, are these adjustable camber plates up front. Keen-eyed among you may have spotted them already. Now when you lower a car, it's going to throw off the suspension geometry, and without getting too deep into it, having camber plates here is going to make getting your alignment right that much easier, and it can mean more grip in the corners for you. The spring perches, the shock bodies, and the camber plates here are all constructed using T6 aluminum, making them super strong and lightweight. The shock bodies have that threading on the outside for adjustment, and everything features a nice coating over top as well. You get black for the shocks, red for the springs, and all of your aluminum parts are anodized too. So all of it is going to be very resistant to rust and corrosion and the elements in general. And you get all the stuff you need, including the tools to adjust these and get them set exactly where you want. So it's going to make for a pretty substantial suspension refresh. Pricing comes in at about $1,500, and for all you're getting here, that's a pretty darn good value. There's a lot of adjustability baked in, backed by some quality parts and development, so if you're looking for a solid set of coilovers that can pull double duty on the street or track, these are going to be a great option for you, and they're not going to ruin your budget. Installation gets a 3 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and the job should take you around 5 hours to complete. Now, there is quite a bit of stuff to do, and you're working on an older car here, so it's going to take some time to get this done right. Plus, you are going to have to spend some time getting these adjusted as well, so factor that in when you're planning. However, since these are coilovers, good news is you don't need to mess with a spring compressor, and everything is just going to simply bolt on in place of your factory original parts. Again, just know it's going to take you some time. You're going to need to make those adjustments, take some measurements and all that, but we're going to show you exactly what you have to do right now, and with that, let's head on out to the shop.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, tape measure, a hammer, a rubber mallet, 15, 17, and 21 millimeter ratcheting wrenches, 18 millimeter wrench, a caliper hook, 5 millimeter Allen wrench, an extension, an E8 E-torque socket, 13, 14, 15, 18, and 24 millimeter sockets, 15 millimeter swivel socket, the included spanner wrenches, a pry bar, and a jack. What's up guys? Today we're installing a coilover kit on our Mustang. First we're going to watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory components. Now in this video, the front and rear sway bars are fully removed, because in that video, they were replacing sway bars. This kit does not have sway bars, so you don't need to remove them. In the front, you just need to disconnect your sway bar end link from the sway bar. Now in the rear, we have our 2 bolts for our sway bar. You only need to remove the one that holds in this brake line bracket, just so you can get a little extra travel out of your axle. So once you have that all done, I'll meet you right back here for the install.
All right, so moving on to the front, you can see that I have both of my wheels and tires off. I've already disconnected the sway bar end link on the driver's side. So I'm gonna do the same on the passenger side here. It's a 15mm nut. So let's get this nut off and this bushing as well. If that doesn't come off, it's fine. You can usually hit it up, hit the sway bar up, and both those bushings will pop. All right, so now we're gonna remove our sway bar end links. Again, I have that 15mm deep socket on my air ratchet, and then I have a 10mm wrench on the shaft of the end link, just to keep it from spinning. Just gonna start this nut. And pull that end link out of here. Remove that on both sides. All right, now we're going to remove our sway bar. You can see this is our mounting point with our bushing in there. These are 16mm nuts. There are 2 on each side. And this plastic piece right here, we're actually gonna snake it through. So I'm going to buzz these off. Hoping that plastic is going to keep it up while I remove the other side. All right, now I'm going to snake this out of here. So there are some push pins that we can remove on the inside of here. Let me get my tool real quick. This inner fender. So there's that push pin. It's a Christmas tree type clip. We are going to slide our sway bar out of the way. All right, so what we're gonna do now is remove our caliper and rotor. First, starting with our caliper, we're gonna take the whole unit off. So we're after these 2 15mm bolts on the back side. Let's get a breaker bar on here first. Make sure that we can loosen them up. All right, now let me get my air ratchet in here. And just to get ready, I have my caliper hanger right there. I'll keep that where my body bolt is. Where is this guy? All right, and then we're gonna hang this caliper out of the way. All right, so next up we're gonna remove our rotor. If you haven't replaced your brakes or removed your rotor yet, you may still have these factory locking washers. R99 only has about 40,000 miles on it, so these are the original brakes. And we're going to remove these little metal washers, like the lock tabs that hold your rotor onto the hub itself. So you don't need to replace these or put them back on. I'll show you a trick when I reinstall the wheel, how to get your rotor to stay in place. But I just bend it so it's a missed shape and then just spin it off. And now we can pull our rotor off. All right, so what we're gonna do next is remove our wheel speed sensor or our ABS sensor right here. And we need an E8 E-bit. So it's like an inverted Torx. And I have this on my 1/4-inch drive, so I'm just going to loosen this up and remove it. Because we gotta separate our spindle from our strut here in a second. And we don't wanna cause any unnecessary stress on this wheel speed sensor because they aren't cheap. All right, so that's out. All right, so let's remove that wheel speed sensor. I'm just gonna push it in the front and pull it in the back as well at the same time, as this has not been removed since new. There's a lot of road grime on that. All right, so that's out. Then I'm gonna take my push pin removal tool and get this loom out of the way. And then lift up on these. And just get that out of the way. Again, this is a magnet, so you can just stick it to a body part and it'll be out of the way. All right, so our next step is to remove this 124mm nut holding this little brake line bracket in place. So just spin this off. We are going to attach that again later. And then we're going to lower the vehicle down to the ground so we can get a jack onto the lower control arm. And then we're going to remove the 2 nut and bolts holding our strut assembly to our spindle. And what that will do is release the tension on that pocket spring so we can lower the jack, get that spring out, and get our strut up all at the same time. All right, so as you can see, I have a jack directly under my lower control arm. The vehicle is pretty low to the ground. And what I'm going to do is now jack up on my jack and take up some of that tension on my pocket spring. Now I can remove the nut and bolt on my lower strut assembly. I'm gonna need a 21mm socket for my bolt head on this side, and then a 24mm socket for my nut side. Let's go ahead and get our tools in place here. All right, there's the first nut. And let's get the second one out of here. Second nut, I'm gonna try to pull one of these bolts out. All right, there's one, there's two. Then I'm going to let my spindle just hang out here. And you see my strut is free now. Now I can lower my jack slowly and have this pocket spring come out. But first I'm going to remove my strut so I have some more room to play with. All right, now we're going to remove our strut. We'll start off by removing these nuts. These are 15mm. Now I'm going to hold on to my strut, take out this last bolt. Make sure you grab that and remove your strut. All right, so now I'm going to release the tension on my jack and watch what happens to my pocket spring. It's gonna wanna fall out of there. So I may need a pry bar to help get it out. That's what we're gonna do now. All right, so there may still be a little bit of tension on this spring, so just be very careful and wary of that. And there it goes.
So now that we have our factory shock and spring removed from the front, we're ready to install our new coilover. Now we do have a sticker on the bottom of the top hat that'll say L or R for the left or right. The left's gonna be the driver, right's gonna be the passenger, because these top hats are different depending on the side. So we're gonna go up in there, slide it into our upper strut mount, and then we're gonna thread on our new nuts. So now slide that up from the bottom, get it lined up with your holes, and then start threading your nuts on. We're just going to loosely install these now so that we still have some maneuverability here to get our knuckle connected. So now grab your floor jack and jack up on your lower control arm to get your knuckle lined up with your strut. Line your bolt holes up and then slide your bolt in from the back to the front. Now on the other side of those bolts, thread your nuts back on. And then grab your 24mm socket, tighten down your two nuts. Now our top one's spinning, so I'm going to grab a 21mm wrench for the other side. And then while we're over here, you can grab the bracket for your ABS sensor and then the little nut, thread that onto the bolt, and then take a 24mm socket and snug that one up. And then go back up top and take a 14mm socket to tighten down your three nuts. And now you can take your ABS sensor, slide it back into that hole, line up your bolt hole and thread that in. Take your E8 eTorque socket, thread it in, and then just snug it up. You don't have to go very tight with this one. Now I'm just going to take my clip and clip that back in up here. And now you can throw your rotor back on. Now I'm just going to throw a lug nut on there just to prevent it from moving around too much. And then grab your caliper off your hook. Make sure your brake line isn't twisted. And then slide your caliper over your rotor. And then we'll reinstall our two caliper bolts on the back. And then grab your 15mm socket and tighten your caliper bolts down. Now at this point, you're going to want to repeat that same process on the other side, and then we're going to get ready to lower our sway bar down onto our end links and reinstall our bushing and nut. And now we're just going to line up our sway bar, get our end link into that cutout on both sides at the same time, and then lower it down. Double check you are in the hole on the other side as well. And then you can drop your bushing and your nut on top. And then take your 15mm socket and tighten it down. Do that same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to show you how to adjust these coilovers. Now right out of the box, this ride height's pretty good for what I like, but if you want to adjust them, what you're going to do is break this bottom collar free using the spanner wrench included, and then you can use these top rings in the correct way to help spin the shaft either into or out of our bottom boot here. Now, something that's nice about these is they do have a cutout for a 3/8 ratchet. That'll help you not bust your knuckles with them. So you're gonna take this hook and put it into one of these slots. And then you can take your ratchet, put it in there. Get one hand on the spanner wrench, one on the ratchet. And that'll help you break that free. And then you can spin that up. Now these two collars are press fit against each other. So if you want to raise this, you're going to take this bottom ring and move it to the right. And if you want to lower it, you're going to take the top ring and move it to the left. If you get confused on which is which, you can just follow this bottom collar. By spinning this to the right, you're moving it up the shaft. So if you twist this bottom collar, it's still going to press against that. You're not going to break it free. Now to spin this down into the shaft to lower it, you're going to go on to that top ring, turning to the left. Just get your tool in place, grab your ratchet, and you can see as you spin that, it's spinning that whole shaft, which is turning this into it, making this shorter, which will make your ride height shorter. And then same thing going the other way. By spinning this bottom collar to the right. That'll turn your whole shaft, and that's going to spin it out of this bottom, which extends the length of your coilover, which increases your ride height. Once you got your adjustments made how you like them, spin that bottom collar back down. Grab your spanner wrench and your ratchet. And lock that into place.
All right, so we're gonna start off in the back, and we need access to our trunk. And we're gonna remove a few trim pieces in here, the sides, to get access to the top of our shock. But right here on this trim piece, there are 4 push pins. I have a push pin removal tool. If you don't have one, you can use a flathead screwdriver. So let's remove all 4 of these. Again, they're push pins like a Christmas tree type. There's 2 on each side of that hinge plate. Just lift that piece out of the way. And then on the back side of your trunk, you're going to see 2 plastic screws. You can use a flathead. There is a little slot right there for it. We're just going to spin it off with our finger. And these are just like a plastic nut type deal. Just like that. All right, now with those 2 nuts and 4 push pins removed, we are going to get this panel out of the way, set it off to the side. So we're also going to remove the 2 side panels that cover our shock towers in the rear. These will just slide out of the way, just off to the side there. And that will expose the nut for the top of our shock. Do that on both sides. All right, so I have my air ratchet right here. It's a 3/8 drive with a deep 15mm socket. We are going to loosen up and remove the nuts on top of our shock. So do that on both sides. And now when we lift the vehicle in the air, those shocks will drop out. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and get our wheels and tires off. All right, so one of our first steps in the uninstall process is to get this quad shock out of the way. So if you have a GT or a convertible version, you will have this quad shock here. I have an 18mm socket. I'm just gonna remove that nut and take the quad shock off of that stud. Just pull it like that and let it sit. Do that on both sides. All right, so since we had to remove the nut on the top of our shock, what we're after now is the bolt here. It's a 15mm head and an 18mm nut on the back side. So I'm just gonna pull the bolt and then get the shock out of the way. Do that on both sides as well. All right, so now we're going to remove our rear sway bar. First, we're gonna get this wheel speed sensor out of the way and off of this bracket here. And then we're going to use a 14mm socket to remove the 2 bolts on this side and the 2 bolts on the other. And then the sway bar will just slide out of the way. So as you see on this bolt right here, you're gonna have a parking brake bracket. You're just gonna slide that out of the way. We'll reattach that when we put our new sway bar in. And I'm gonna get the last 2 bolts out and slide this sway bar out of the way. All right, so you can see that I have 2 pole jacks supporting the entire weight of my rear end. I'm going to get the last bolt that holds in my sway bar out of the way. And you can see these handles are facing straight back. So hopefully this sway bar will land on there. There is a little bit of weight, so if you have a friend to help you out, I highly recommend you grab them. So I'm gonna give 1 hand to the bar and 1 hand to my impact and get this bolt out of here. There's that side. And I'm gonna pull this bolt. And there is our factory sway bar out of the way. So minus your upper and lower control arms, those are the only things that are attaching your rear axle to the body of the Mustang. So now I'm going to lower my jack stands evenly, both at the same time. And then I'm going to lower one side a little lower than the other so I can angle it and get that spring out of there. So as you can see, there's no tension on that, but there is on this. And if I pull on this side of the axle, I can get that spring out. So I'm gonna lower it down even more to get some more travel out of it. Just like that. And now I can get my spring out of there.
So now with our factory shock and spring removed from the rear, we're gonna measure it up with our new one and just get a good baseline for where we want our ride height to sit, and then we can adjust the smaller adjustments on the car later. So I'm gonna go for about a 2.5-inch drop here. So we've got our spring. So we're just gonna line up our top hats. And then we're just gonna measure the difference between the two, which right now we have at about 4 inches. So we're gonna have to spin these collars pretty far down. So just twist them down towards the ends. Slide your lock collar down as well. And we'll get that line back up. Now we're at about 3 inches. So I'm just gonna go a little bit more here. And right there, we're right about that 2.5. So we're gonna slide the spring off. So now just take your 2 spanner wrenches, twist them in opposite directions, snug them up. And now we'll move on to our shock. You want to get your bolt holes on the bottom lined up. And then I'm going to be measuring from this bottom seat to the one on our factory. And we've got about 2 inches there. So I'm just going to thread this one out a little bit. Line it back up. And that's right around where we want it. Thread your lock collar down. And grab your spanner wrench and just snug it up. And then do the same thing for your other shock and spring, and we'll get these onto the Mustang. So now I'm going to slide my shock into place. So raise it up behind your quad shock. and then get it into your lower mount. And then we're just gonna slide our factory bolt through. Thread your nut on, and we're just gonna leave this one loose for right now. And now you can take your whole spring assembly and slide that up and into place. Now it's not gonna connect into that upper mount quite yet, but we're gonna start raising up our pole jack until we can get our quad shock installed. And then we can lower this down, get into the trunk to install the nut on our shock, and then we can jack this up to get it seated into place. So now I'm gonna start turning the handle on my pole jack to raise my axle up. If you're doing this on the ground, use your floor jack to jack that up. And we're just gonna align our quad shock with that stud. Make sure you're keeping an eye on your shock and your spring as you're going up. Go up a little bit more here. I'm just gonna grab a rubber mallet just to tap that onto the stud. And thread the nut on. And now at this point, you can repeat the process on the other side. You can release the tension off of your axle, and we'll go into the trunk and get everything lined up here. So now I've got the car lowered down. I've got a jack underneath our lower shock mount. I'm just gonna be jacking up on the axle while I'm guiding in my shock and my spring. And now with those both seated into place, we can go into the trunk and get that nut on the top of our upper shock. So now inside the trunk, we're gonna take our bushing, slide that on, and then our washer and our nut. And then we're gonna take a 17mm ratcheting wrench and a 5mm Allen wrench and tighten that down. Now we're just gonna get all of our trunk carpet pieces into place. And then you can take your plastic piece, slide that over the latch. And get your push pins pressed into place. And now we'll go back underneath and button everything up. So now I've got a pole jack under the axle. Once again, if you're doing this on the ground, you can get a floor jack under the pumpkin. We're just gonna put a load on our suspension so we can go back and tighten down all of our bushings. I'm gonna start with the brake line bracket on our sway bar mount. Take a 13mm socket, thread that bolt in. If you can't get it to thread nicely, you can loosen up that other sway bar bolt. And I'm just gonna throw that 13mm socket on the other side of my gun. Tighten that down. And then take that grommet and reinstall that into your clip. And now grab an 18mm socket and tighten down your quad shock. And then grab your 15mm socket and 18mm wrench to tighten down your lower shock mount. And then you can do that whole process on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Petters Extreme XA Coilover Plus Kit for your 94 to 04 Mustang, excluding 99 to 04 Cobra. Thank you for watching, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.